Welcome to Sports Talk Live Plus here. I'm John Scott, the sports director here at Channel 2, joined as always by the insider and Hall of Famer Vic Carucci. Bills hosting the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. We'll get into the matchup a bit coming up. Longtime ESPN Pats beat reporter Mike Reese bringing us the New England perspective. And Vic and I, we've got to talk about why ties gotta go in the NFL.
Right.
But first, the latest Bills injury report. Dorian Strong popping up as a DNP with a neck injury. Dorian Williams a DNP as well. Matt Milano, Ed Oliver, and Spencer Brown all limited again, as you could see right here. Jackson Hawes also limited with an ankle injury. TJ Sanders popping up as limited here today. Saw him on the practice field earlier, but he has listed as a knee injury here. So this is where things stand right now, Vic. Just an overall thought on an injury report that seems improving from what we had the dialogue a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the names that have been on there and that look to be trending their way back, at Oliver, Matt Milano, perhaps Spencer Brown. Now, the one that you look at, the two that you look at are the Dorians. Very interesting situation there with the two of them popping up. And when a guy pops up, I always have a little problem with that because it feels like, okay, something is there in a bigger sense. And here it is Thursday, and you're looking at neck, knee injury for each one respectively. And look, in one form or another, that you don't see them as frontline guys necessarily, but you certainly see them as important people. And the depth that Dorian Williams provides behind Matt Milano. Although with Milano out, then yeah, an unhealthy Dorian Williams is problematic.
Another interesting little nugget. I spoke with Dorian Strong after practice yesterday, and for him to not be on the field today because of a neck injury, certainly an interesting development here. You mentioned the three guys who missed last week who are now limited, and let's start with Matt Milano here and the impact that he can make simply by being reinserted into the middle of the defense.
Yeah, it's important because start with the fact that his impact physically is vital, that he is a help and a big one to this team's run defense, which we know is an issue, to say the least, and reared its ugly head again against the Saints with no Matt Milano. And you can't just talk about that and assume that Matt Milano's absence had nothing to do with it. Of course, it contributed in some way. So getting him back healthy, important. Then go beyond that with all that he brings in the way of his football IQ and his instincts and his leadership and getting people in the right position. And, it gives them, between Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano, two real highly intelligent linebackers running that defense from the core. So having him back is a big deal. And I think, again, if it's trending in the right direction, this is a big plus.
Yeah, he's been out since injuring his pec in the Jets game. This video you've been seeing all from the past 2 days of practice. Let's shift on over to Ed Oliver. Once again, video that I've gotten over the past couple days of what he's been doing at practice. You mentioned the run defense. You mentioned kind of the defense as a whole against the run. He was a monster in the one time we've seen him against Baltimore. It goes without saying he's a difference maker back reinserted in the middle of the line. Again,
that sample size of one game that we have of his 2025 season is highly impressive. Do we get that guy back again if he's on the field? I don't know, but you go from there and say something definitely has clicked with him. And what I saw rewatching that game wasn't just the plays he made, but how he anticipated the plays to be made, how he put himself in the right position. This is not your classic physically dominant guy who ties people up. He's not built that way, John. We know he's a gap shooter. When you hear Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbage talk about gap integrity, this is a guy who understands that well and respects that well. Usually is where he needs to be to make the plays that he needs to make. So getting him back ASAP, and I say ASAP is that if that's Sunday night, it would mean, okay, coming back in the fifth game of the season. Well, that you can't wait for that. That's none, better sooner than later.
One little thing I noticed while editing this video, you see it right here. He grabs that left ankle, the one that he had stepped on in practice before he does some of this stuff. Just a little thing that I picked up on. And Oliver, maybe he watches this show, Vic. He joked. He said, "Listen, I promise you I got stepped on in practice. I heard things like I fell off a horse or run over by a horse, but no, he wants to be clear that he
when you have to defend while you were hurt, is that a bad thing?
Well, moving on. Spencer Brown's return here. I got to say, I think Ryan Vandermark has played well in spurts over his time with the Bills. The New Orleans Saints fill in for Spencer Brown, not his finest moment. We know about the continuity of that unit and how great collectively the Bills' offensive line has been for years now. So getting their right tackle back would be good against a New England defense, especially up front. That's no slouch.
Right. This would be vital, and again, a more consistent player than Vandermark. That's why he's a starter. That's why he is being paid and is recognized as one of the better tackles in the league, one of the better right tackles in the league. And I think the Bills are the continuity that they have on this offensive line. He's a huge part of that. Yes, Vandermark has played enough and has been a part of enough practices, and the way this unit is put together, it does have Aaron Cromer, the O-line coach, I think has these guys all cycling on the same page, but it's a different group when this guy is on the field.
Now, I think it's a good time now to revisit the cornerback 2 conversation. Dorian Strong, of course, not practicing today with that neck injury, so maybe this is moot for this weekend's game, but we did see the rookie substituting a little bit for a few series for Tre'Davious White against the Saints. We know Max Hairston eligible to come off of injured reserve now after these 4 weeks, but still working off to the side. Bills choosing not to open his 21-day practice window. But I do ask you, all 3 of these pieces in the mix, the fact that the Bills were willing and interested in getting Dorian Strong extra time with Tre'Davious White fully healthy, what does that say for the now, and what does that say for the later with Hairston's return pending at some point here?
I think it says a lot. I think it says that this team has, this coaching staff, and then we can extend it to the personnel staff, to Brandon Beane, is setting up the next chapter, whatever that is, for cornerback 2. Look, I don't know that any of us saw Tre'Davious White as anything but a placeholder ultimately for Max Hairston to step in, but that plan was drawn before Hairston's injury in camp. That set things back. That caused this team to kind of have to rethink how it was pushing it, and then White's additional injury crops up. You don't plan on that, but that happens too. He comes back from that, but what we've seen of Tre'Davious White is solid, okay kind of player, not great. They need great. You want great all the time. And what gives them great? I don't know that Dorian Strong necessarily gives them that, but if he's an upgrade on a consistent basis and they're rotating to see how much of a difference there is. This is for in-game, but also post-game analysis review by this coaching staff. Okay, just how much better did things go and the coverages look with a younger athlete in there who doesn't know as much as 27 as Tre'Davious White, but certainly physically can do a better job.
Maybe the floor higher with Tre'Davious White, the ceiling higher with Dorian Strong.
Yeah.
And the Bills certainly feeling with Max Hairston fully healthy whenever that is, the ceiling is highest with him on the field. Whoever is out there Sunday night likely going to have to deal with a guy named Stefon Diggs, and he's no stranger to Highmark Stadium, but this is the first time he will be inside that building as an opponent since the Bills traded him about a year and a half ago. Diggs has really spoken glowingly, very well about the fan base, his time here in Buffalo throughout this week, when asked about it a lot over in New England. But how do you feel the Mafia is going to welcome him back to Orchard Park?
Oh, with open arms. No, not even close. Look, he wanted out, and that's where it began. And for Bills fans, when you don't want part of them or their team or their community, then they'll turn their back on you. And while I think there will be some acceptance and pleasant memory of what kind of impact this guy had when he was a Bill, when he was wearing a Bills uniform, how he and Josh Allen clicked to the point of elevating this team into a Super Bowl contender, those are the fond memories that will linger. But the overarching thought will be, you didn't want to be here, and you basically worked your way out of the building successfully. So he's not going to get anything except a very, I think, harsh response from the fans. And when I say harsh, booing and so forth, don't make it any more than that. But his ability to and his motivation is going to be drawn from that. This is a guy who will thrive on that adversity. He'll eat that up, John. He'll eat that up, and he'll come in here with the idea that he's part of an offense now where he's feeling first of all, physically comfortable from the knee injury he suffered last year in Houston, and then a comfort level with this scheme with Josh McDaniels is doing in New England, working with Drake May, being more of a slot receiver as opposed to a perimeter guy, taking advantage of the fact that, okay, physically he's not necessarily that take the top off the defense, but he can run some serious routes. He can get separation.
I'm kind of on the fence, Vic. I got to be honest with you. I think this being as far removed as it has been with the Bills facing him in Houston a year ago, I know from a team standpoint, I think the page has been turned. From a fan standpoint, the first opportunity they have to see him, I think it's going to be a little more mixed. I think there's going to be some boos, but I do tend to think that people are going to also remember him fondly, especially if he does his traditional pregame routine throwing passes to the fans here. We'll quickly put up the numbers of what he's doing right now in New England, coming off the best game of his career. Now we're going to slide to New England offensively in general, and just some initial thoughts here. We'll get into it a little deeper on our show at 6:30 on Sunday night, but just initial blanket thoughts on what the Bills are getting with the New England offense.
Yeah, you can't ignore 42 points that they put up against Carolina, even though it was Carolina. But they are starting, I think, to figure out what it is, have an offensive identity, what it is that Drake May can do best, taking advantage of not just the passing arm, but the legs. And he's got that dynamic talent. And I think it's also about trying to cut down on mistakes. They had the flurry of them in one game where it blew up on them to have all those turnovers, 5 in a game, and then to come back and do what they did against Carolina tells me message received, and the great job that Mike Vrabel, I think, did to kind of turn this team's focus in the right place. So overall, and they run the football well, which I think is also a thing to look at with Buffalo's run defense. And then the question becomes defensively, can they handle the Bills running game?
Yeah, let's go to the defensive side of things here, because that's where I think New England's usually known for, is their defense. Mike Vrabel doing it a little bit differently here, but they're still good, especially against the run. Yeah,
and again, we've seen as hot a hand as you can have with James Cook, and 3 games in a row where he has been, where the Bills offense has run through him. He gets obviously Offensive Player of the Week for his efforts against the Saints. Let's see it happen this third game. And, we just to take it back a little bit to the Spencer Brown conversation, having that big guy back and in the lineup on that offensive line, because it's really been about their ability to get that push. Can they get the same thing done against these guys? And the scheme, the Patriots scheme, just watching them as closely as I have over the last couple of days, lends itself to some openings. If you can get to that next level, I see a couple places where James Cook could be running for a long time.
We're going to get more detailed into the matchup between the Bills and the Patriots on our special Sports Talk Live over on Channel 2 leading into the game 6:30 on Sunday. But for now, we're going to get perspective from the opponent's side of things. Longtime Patriots beat reporter Mike Reese from ESPN chatting with Vic. We have that coming up next here on Sports Talk Live Plus. Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus. Time to get into the matchup between the Bills and Patriots from the perspective of the opponent this week. Vic catching up with ESPN's Mike Reese. Fantastic stuff from Mike.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike has done a fantastic job through the years, Boston Globe, now with ESPN, and I don't know that there is a sharper mind covering that Patriot team than this guy's. Drake May's performance, impressive as both a thrower and a runner. Would you call it his breakout game? And again, how much can you see him building upon that?
So I think it's a game that shows he's continuing to grow, Vic. And I think that's how I would define this last game. Just he's been very efficient, and I think he's really benefiting from a better structure around him with offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. We know his history, right? A very good play caller. And they have a good offensive coaching staff and better weapons around Drake to give him the best chance to succeed. It's definitely progressing and taking the step in year 2 that the Patriots hoped he would take.
This will be Stefon Diggs' first Buffalo homecoming. What do you think in terms of not only that as a motivation for a guy who certainly utilizes as much emotion as he can in his game? How big a role will that play in his performance, 1? And 2, if you could break down some of the things he's been doing in his first year as a Patriot.
So, Vic, I'll take you to the end of this last game. Stefon Diggs has a big game, 6 catches, 101 yards, best game as a Patriot. And he was asked right off the bat, maybe not the first question, but in that post-game news conference, thoughts on going back to Orchard Park? And he talked about the Bills Mafia, called them one of the best fan bases, if not the best fan base in the league. Said it's going to be a great atmosphere, how much he was looking forward to it. Said shout out to Josh. So to already talking about Josh Allen, I mean, this is less than an hour or about an hour after the game ended. So to your point, he's already thinking about it. And the game before had barely ended, right? And they're getting him more into the mix. He's only playing about 55% of the offensive snaps. So not going to see him out on the field all the time. But this last game, they got him involved down the field, critical situations. So you're seeing that camaraderie, that chemistry with Drake May starting to come to life with him and Stefon.
As a matchup conversation goes, looking at a weakness of the Bills where the Patriots could capitalize, it would, of course, be Buffalo's run defense. It has not been good. It was awful against the Saints. How do you see the Patriots perhaps taking advantage?
So if they take care of the ball, and that's the big if, Vic, they got Ramondre Stevenson, who Bills fans know well. They got Antonio Gibson, another sort of power runner, and they have Travion Henderson, an impressive rookie who's very, very fast. So I think if they can mix those 3 in there behind an offensive line that's coming together that's the formula. But that week 3 game against the Steelers, Ramondre Stevenson lost 2 fumbles. Antonio Gibson lost 1 fumble. So I would imagine the Bills defenses watch the film and they're going to be like sharks in the water going after that ball. So I think that'll be a key.
And from the standpoint of dealing with what Buffalo has been doing offensively, the balance being there with James Cook, of course, having 3 consecutive 100-yard rushing games, Josh Allen generally being Josh Allen, but not having to be the focal point of the offense. Give me a sense of the Patriot defense dealing with that.
So to me, that's the key of the game from a Patriot standpoint, Vic. Can they defend the run when they're in their nickel defense? So a lighter box. This is a different type of Patriots defense than I think Bills fans are going to be used to seeing. It's not the old Bill Belichick, big, stout guys up front, control the line of scrimmage. They're more of a faster, stunting, penetrating defense. And at times, like the edges have been soft, so they've been vulnerable on the edge, not always filling the gaps. So I think if the Patriots can defend the run, gives them a chance to spring the upset. But I haven't seen that consistently through the first 4 games.
All right, Mike Reese from ESPN. And the thing that struck me, what we just talked about at the end there, that it's a different kind of defense that we're used to seeing from the Patriots. This lighter box, as he's saying, fewer people between the tackles defensively, and it's all about kind of shooting gaps, quick penetration, and not really stout, meaning that if you get around the perimeter with speed, and I'm just thinking Elijah Moore out loud, you know, those end-around kind of plays, those can pop for big gains.
Connor McGovern telling me this week that one difference between the Belichick era and what they're doing now is they're not really trying to trick you. They get set. They're not going to say, hey, try to figure it out and stunt and move and all of this stuff. We're going to tell you what we're doing. We're going to show you.
Yeah, beat it.
And you have to try to beat it. We'll see if the Bills can. So we've run down the Bills and the Patriots matchup. What's up next for the Dolphins and Jets? They look at the rest of the AFC East. Plus, yeah, we're getting into the ties in the NFL. They stink. Final segment of Sports Talk Live Plus after the break. Welcome back to Sports Talk Live Plus. Half the AFC East we know will be inside Highmark Stadium for Sunday Night Football. Time to see what the rest of the division has here on tap in Week 5. And we got the Dolphins at the Panthers, battle of 1 and 3. Cowboys going to the Jets, who are still winless here. What stands out for what the Dolphins and Jets have here?
Well, you got to start the Dolphin conversation, of course, with that gruesome injury that Tyreek Hill suffered. I mean, just ugly to watch, and you do feel bad. I mean, this guy's game is speed, and to have that much damage to a leg, to a knee, is you just wonder where it goes. And you also saw them, were they finally getting a little bit of traction? Mm-hmm. I mean, was it coming together? And Darren Waller in that offense getting the 2 touchdowns. Panthers, I just don't have any.
They just got smoked by New England.
They
I
got
think that tells you all you need to know.
By New England. Again, I'm not a big, I don't have big thoughts that Tua Tagovailoa is going to do great things. But I do think the Dolphins probably, even without Tyreek Hill, have enough to win that game.
Yeah, and the Jets offense has their issues, but the Cowboys defense, if you can't put up points and yards against them, then you are the worst offense that could possibly be put together here. Yeah. Jets, I think, is sneaky, have the possibility to grab their first win.
You're right. That's what this feels like, kind of a sneaky sort of thing. And as Justin Fields is going to come together for him. He had a sick run in that last game, right, against the Dolphins. Even in the losing effort, I mean, it was spectacular the way he wheeled around literally from one side of the field. It was very Josh Allen-like in many ways. But I think more of that, more of them kind of maybe gaining some traction under Aaron Glenn, and then finally putting an end to that losing streak.
Now you see that one at the end of the Cowboys record. That's because Packers and Cowboys, a sensationally entertaining football game, Sunday Night Football a week ago, ends in a 40-40 tie. We were going to try to get to it on the Monday show, but Vic, the floor is yours. Your thoughts on ties in the National Football League?
Yeah, I hate them. And I hate the fact that there are different rules for them in the postseason because you've got to advance a winner. I know why they're in place in the regular season because of TV windows. So you don't want games overlapping from the 1 o'clock window to the 4 or the 4 to the Sunday night game. But I hate them. I figure it out. I don't know how, but
college rules. Just go to the college rules. Who doesn't? And even the college game with the 2-point conversions, because they kept dragging on. UB had a 7 overtime game just a few years ago. Even they are like, hey, after 2, you got to go for 2-point conversions here to speed up the process here. But college, just have them play first and goal and whatever.
80 points in dissatisfaction. That just doesn't add up, right? You're seeing. I mean, it's not. It's just not right. I know player safety is always going to be the conversation. You don't want them on the field too long. But guess what? You played to a winner. You got to get a winner.
100%.